Hi everyone, welcome to UPSC Tree. So in this video, we'll do analysis of GS paper 2, that is General Studies paper 2, conducted recently by OPSC. Let's go through the questions. Achha. So this is a 10 marker question that you have to answer in 150 words. Justify India's neutrality over the Ukraine invasion of Soviet Russia. So this is a much debated topic that India took a neutral stand because see, if you look at say USA, the major issue is there was a USA camp and there was a Russia camp. And this is nothing new. First, while discussing these topics, you discuss that this is nothing new because we did the same thing a long time ago. That is, in non-alignment movement, we didn't go for either US camp or Russia camp. Okay, so that you have to discuss, and you have to show that this is nothing new for Indian philosophy or idea of foreign relations. So this is just new or neo non-alignment movement that you establish. Second, you also discuss if we join the USA camp or the Russia camp and don't show neutrality, then we cannot bargain or we cannot go for diplomatic maneuvers. And diplomacy is all about the gray area, it's not black and white. So that you have to show that. Okay, if we join any of the camps, then we cannot talk or find a solution. So because India has taken a neutrality stand, so we can be a mediator to the Russia-Ukraine war and we can talk to both the camps. So that is the diplomacy is all about. And it is not in the India's interest to go for any camp as we have established in the non-alignment movement itself. Okay. So justify that, done. Next question, examine the nuclear energy policy of India. Obviously nuclear energy policy material will be diya and this is a pretty easy topic. Okay. Now this question is asking about planning commission, Niti Aayog kind of comparison you have to do. Okay. To what extent has the Niti Aayog has been successful? That you have to show. See, planning commission in this, while discussing this one, planning commission you have to establish that how it was anti-federal in its functioning. Okay, anti-federal in its functioning. During planning commission era, many of the states used to complain, okay, because they used to control the funds tightly. They didn't give funds, as per the necessity. So that was a major issue, and states didn't have a major voice in planning commission. So it was a top-down approach was there. Top-down approach to planning was there, planning commission era, and it was mostly inspired from the Russian model that you can talk about. But Niti Aayog represents the spirit of modern India. That means Niti Aayog, the core philosophy is it is driven by cooperative federalism. That aspect you have discussed, cooperative federalism. Okay, and states have a greater voice over here. States have a greater voice, and also if you look at if you compare between planning commission and Niti Aayog has is not only it is not only about say policy formulation and all. It is also acting as a major think tank. It is also acting as a major innovation hub, and in 21st century. This represents the idea of innovation. At the same time, it also goes for monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring and evaluation of different states. Monitoring and evaluation. So what it is doing between the center and state, we can see that there is cooperative federalism within the state, between states, we can see a spirit of competitive federalism. That means, जो ranking हो रहा है, Niti Aayog is coming up with lot of rankings, and in that ranking, every state is ranked against other states. So it is promoting the spirit of competitive federalism in the horizontal manner and cooperative federalism in the vertical manner. That aspect you can talk over here. And because of the competition, see, we know that if there is competition, obviously there will be innovation, there will be excellence. Okay, so yes, Niti Aayog, how it has been successful, that aspect you have to establish showing all these aspects. Also mention कि नीति आयोग कौन report publish करुची and all that. Okay. Doable 10 marks easy. Examine the consequence of Russia-Ukraine war on worldwide economy. Again, very well known topic. All these topics where I have discussed in class in depth. Okay. Worldwide economy, we know that there was a supply chain disruption. Okay. And because of the supply chain disruption and uncertainty, the world has entered a phase of global recession. And while discussing this, don't forget to mention the COVID-19 dimension. COVID-19 pushed economy into a negative path, but then while it was just coming out of the negative recession, then Russia-Ukraine war happened. So, the world has entered into a global recession. The average growth of the world economy is going to be very low, 1 to 2%. If you look at the different projections that you have to talk. So, job creation will be badly impacted. Okay. And supply chain disruption jogo, you can mention ki how it gave rise to bottleneck inflation. Bottleneck inflation mostly happens when there is supply chain disruption. Okay. So, how it is giving rise to inflation? There is oil crisis, there is oil shortage is there, wheat shortage is there. So, supply demand mismatch jogo inflation bhi hochi, se aspect guda lekhiba. Then sanction also is there. USA and their allies have imposed a lot of sanction on Russia, that is bad for the global economy, se aspect guda lekhiparibo. Moving on, doable question. Okay. Discuss the conventional and advisory jurisdiction of the ICJ. International Court of Justice, it is part of UN system that you establish, kodi headquarter achi kon achi discussion kardabo, and you discuss that ki ICJ is a toothless tiger, because even though it is an international court and suppose it has given a pronouncement, then it does not have the mechanism to implement those pronouncement. For example, it gave a adverse pronouncement as far as South China Sea is concerned. However, because China is a strong state, they could not do anything about it. Okay, so limitations of International Court of Justice also you talk about that. Next, moving on, what do you mean by stealth technology? Science and tech re bahut kharab hi question paketile, if you ask me, unnecessary. There are so many good topics are there. I don't understand why they are sourcing their science and tech questions, because these are 18th century questions, not 21st century questions, in my opinion. Okay. So, stealth technology, yes, you can talk about stealth technology is mostly used in defense. Okay, defense, and how it can be a support to our defense system. Obviously, when radar detection hai pariboni, because the particular thing cannot be detected. So obviously our military capability will be much higher. So aspect duda lekhibo. Okay. I didn't like the science and tech questions. I think most of the aspirants will agree with me, because there were better questions. I don't understand why they are asking this kind of questions. With a significant description of nanofluid, mention why it is used as heat exchange for the new technologies to enhance heat transfer. PhD करना है बस, civil service नहीं करना है, PhD करना है. Unnecessary questions, I know. They could have asked in nanotechnology what are the not ethical dimensions, what is the dimensions of nanotechnology and how it has been used, that they can ask. And nano urea was in the news also, because we have gave this nano urea to Sri Lanka and all that. So nanotechnology, we understood कि nanotechnology ऊपर question आसियो, but this question is very specific and पिला समझते मिच्छो सता कर लिखचंदे. And if you ask me, we should not be doing PhD on science and tech. From a civil service, say, because today you are aspirant, tomorrow you will be bureaucrat. From bureaucratic understanding, you should know how it impacts the society, economy, polity and all that. Okay, we are more concerned about these aspects of that. Okay, so not a very good question in my opinion. Science and tech ro bekkariya question pachachandi, if you ask me honestly. Question number 9 is statistics and all that. So statistics I will not be discussing in this one. Moving on, again statistics question. Moving on. discuss the challenges faced by India to its territorial integrity. When we say territorial integrity, my question ta bhi deyithili test re. That means you do a map of India so that you know where we are fighting for territorial integrity. For example, Pakistan occupied Kashmir dekhei paribo. Then we have Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin region is occupied by China. Then China se to land border dispute is going on, that you can talk about. China also claims that Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet. So this what China is doing is known as cartographic aggression. Cartographic aggression. Okay, it is tinkering with the maps and threatening our territorial integrity and sovereignty. While discussing these things, you also discuss in this one Belt and Road Initiative, specifically China Economic, China-Pakistan, sorry, one second, this is wrong, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, and this is passing through our, it threatens passing through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, so it is passing through our, sovereignty, it's threatening our sovereignty, so we cannot join this particular grouping at all, okay. So mostly the threats are coming from Pakistan, the threats are coming from China. Apart from that, territorial integrity jehetu question asuche, you can talk about ki that string of pearls, what China is trying to have access to the many of the ports in the Indian Ocean so that it can encircle India, which is threat to India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Say aspect guda dekhe paribo. Okay, 20 mark question, pretty much of the students will audition the vishay, so lekhi paribo easily. Okay, explain the opportunities before India as a leader of G20. Okay, so we are talking about when India took presidency of G20, India has been mainstreaming Global South, or India is trying to become the voice of Global South. That means India is trying to push through the necessities and the voices of Global South, specifically the South American countries, African countries, India, etc. Okay, so say aspect guda dekhibo, and G20 ru guda pronouncement aschi, kothi hitla, kon hitla, kemti chalchi, what are the what India is trying to achieve. Lot of articles are there, so pretty well known topic, lekhi hobo easily. Okay, pila mane pray padhithibe au lekhithibe. Question number 13, give a brief outline of Odisha's macroeconomic performance in terms of growth. Okay, so post reform period re question mu deithili bi, and I have discussed it in detail. The dekhibo mostly okay, let me clear it. Okay, this question how you can discuss ki 1991 re India went for LPG, but jehetu wherever you go for economic reform, it takes time for the reform to take, to see the benefit. So eventually only in 2000 India will experience the benefits of LPG, but Odisha will experience the same thing in 2005 only. So कहली particular graph भी I have shared with the students. So Odisha's economy, if you look at the stage till 1991 till 2005, after 2005 it will take off. So that diagram or that chart you have to mention कि post reform period till 1991 to 2005 still Odisha didn't have the, because we didn't have access to capital and good labor resources or good human resources. So that was a major issue. But then post reform period re post 2005 Odisha exponential growth hala. Even at some point of time we have touched 10% of growth year on year. So se aspect guda lekhibaku padibo. But then again it dekhaibo ki the majority of the growth in Odisha is coming from mining sector and service sector. Okay, that aspect. So what is free trade agreement? This is pretty typical, जो concentric circle है, free trade agreement, then economic union, political union. So that concentric circle देखे दो, so that you establish कि what exactly is free trade agreement. Okay, tariff concession रहिबो, access to market रहिबो, ये aspect गुड़ा लिखिबो, and discuss the major issues relating to India's FTA. Now if you haven't read about what are the issues we are facing with India's FTA, then you will not be able to discuss about it. Okay, have read economy in depth, then only you will be able to answer this question. So that is the major thing. Highlight the Indo-US relations in the changing geopolitical scenario. Discuss the nuances with. Okay, so this is again USA, Russia, and India. So this is a triangular love story जैसा है. Okay, because see USA we have a natural convergence because a lot of Indians are there in USA. They are leading major companies in USA. The most of the cream of the cream diaspora is in USA. That is true, and we have a biggest trade. One of the biggest partner in trade, foreign trade is USA. So obviously USA natural convergence is there, cultural convergence is there. Because both of us are democracy, etc. All those things. Okay, but Russia is a पुराना दोस्त जिसके साथ हम नहीं छोड़ सकते. Okay, so it has been a time-tested ally of India. That is the reason why we cannot leave Russia, neither we can leave USA. Russia has been a time-tested friend. We cannot leave them, and USA we have a natural convergence, and our political and economic interests are there with USA. So obviously India has to walk a tight डबल एज सोर्ड जैसा. ठीक है, इधर थोड़ा इधर से उधर हो गया तो सर चला जाएगा. काइंड ऑफ दैट इंडिया हैज़ टू walk a tight rope on this one, and India is doing a pretty good job as far as maintaining these two conflicting relations. Okay, so that's the beauty of Indian diplomacy. Over here Indian diplomats के बारे में, Indian diplomacy के बारे में glorification कर देना अच्छे से. ठीक है, moving on, how does India sees its place in the economic space for rising natural resource? Africa is a poorly developed rich continent. It has a lot of mineral resources, lot of other things are there, but it is poorly developed. Just like Odisha. Okay, we are rich in minerals, but development नहीं हुआ है अब तक. So similar kind of thing, and because it is bountiful as far as natural resources are concerned, so there has been a lot of competition between India and China to have have dominance over Africa. And if very broader perspective of geopolitics, there was a European century, then there was a American century. Now this 21st century belongs to the Asia. Okay, and the future will belong to the Africans. Always remember that. So all the competition is going to happen over there, and India and China both are competing over there to have access to all kinds of resources, political resources and economical investment, all that. Okay, so that aspect you can talk about. Why Africa is important and all that. Okay, this question you can talk about biogas energy, you can talk about Govardhan scheme and all that, and what is the importance of this particular scheme and how you can go for biogas energy, so that see it solves two important dilemmas. देखो, Ujjwala Yojana is there by government to provide LPG at a subsidized rate, but उसका एक very interesting article came out saying that कि although the cylinders तो मिल गया LPG का, but the rural households are not renewing it. इसका मतलब है एक बार ख़त्म हो गया, उसके बाद they are not going and refill नहीं कर रहे हैं. क्यों? Because the cost is relatively high for a rural household. That is true. But then again, if a woman in rural household is going for say chulha kind of thing, so it is going to give her a lot of health issues. So how to avoid that? And that is the reason why in rural area we need cooking fuel. At the same time, we need something that is affordable for the rural area, and biogas can play very good role. In fact, if you look at Indian farmer, 30% of Indian farmers' income comes from livestock rearing. That is from the having goats, sheep, etc. So from that we can go for biogas energy. So it will solve there too, because the livestock act as a climatic insurance and climatic insurance. And in here, if you look at say biogas, it is a clean fuel. So that will solve the two problems that the rural Indian faces. Okay, with inheritance characteristics and general working of a ledger. See again, science and tech, I don't know where they anyway, still ledger you can talk about. Laser technology, optical fiber में use होता है laser technology, because it is all about Optical fiber is just like diamond, ठीक है, total internal reflection, that concept has been used. So yes, then I think we can talk about Li-Fi, that is light fidelity, जिसमें लेजर यूज होता है. लेजर फॉर कम्युनिकेशन, lidar आप लिख सकते हो. Okay, lidar, light detection and ranging, so it's a topographic, terrain mapping and all that. So communication technology में यूज होता है. You can write those things, but then again 20 मार्क लिखना क्या, थोड़ी ना PhD करना है इसमें. I don't know why they are giving these questions. Okay, thank God these things will not going to be there going forth. Statistics हटा दिए, unnecessary burden. Okay, so you should be thankful to OPSC for removing statistics. Anyway, so this was the GS2 analysis. Overall questions were mostly geopolitical in nature. Science and tech खराब था question, outright खराब. ठीक है, बच्चे इधर उधर की बातें लिख के आए हैं. I know that. Okay, and it's not a good question if you ask me honestly. And we are living in 21st century. Still technology ये पुराना है. जो साइंस एंड टेक का यूजुअली बुक आता था ना पहले, when students usually start preparation, they buy a book साइंस एंड टेक का, कुछ काम का नहीं होता है उसमें. this kind of garbage will be mentioned over there. So I think they have framed question from that kind of garbage. But anyway, moving on, cook up your answers, and at the same time overall it's a okay kind of paper if you don't consider science and tech. Thank you and